Well, welcome. I want to introduce you to Christian Boo Boucousis. He is the CEO of Afterburner Incorporated, and everybody calls you Boo, so I am definitely going to be doing the same today. Boo is a former fighter pilot turned business founder, author, and inspirational speaker. Boo has delivered hundreds of keynote speeches globally, from Google to Zurich to Microsoft, inspiring audiences to unlock their full potential and achieve extraordinary things. Boo inspires people to discover a new way of thinking that empowers them to believe that even the most audacious ambitions are within their reach. So, Boo, I'm so thrilled to have you. So, welcome.
Thanks, Kim. Really looking forward to having a conversation with you. I'm very humbled to have the opportunity to be here today.
Oh, I feel the same. I first of all, I just love your message of not being afraid to think big and really embracing those goals and dreams that seem so out of reach. And the evolution of thinking, as you call it, is a topic that you're sharing with so many people, individuals, companies around the world. And I'm so curious to hear your perspective on this as a former fighter pilot. I have not had a fighter pilot on the program yet, so happy to have you here talking about that.
Thanks. Yes.
And how you've lived this out in your own life and business. Where did your desire and your vision of being a fighter pilot come from?
Yeah, it's a good question. And, the age of 49, I'm still living to that dream. And I guess, you mentioned earlier about thinking big. And whilst a lot of us think big, I think it's more important for us to feel big, to actually believe what our dream is rather than think it's achievable. The interesting thing about being a fighter pilot is it brings together so many different elements of performance, so many different elements of well-being. It's everything that is, I guess, at play now in the world around living your best life, about connections to purpose, about engagement, around mindset, you name it, diversity, inclusion. Because your life depends on it as a fighter pilot, I think we, by accident, created not by accident, but by having lots of accidents and lots of pilots getting hurt, we kind of fell upon this system. And whilst we don't really call it anything, it's just the way the whole thing worked. It's the way we work together. It's the way our brains work individually. Now having it codified and being able to share it with other people, what we see is some pretty amazing life outcomes. And the evolution of thinking, its genesis is really, hey, thinking like a fighter pilot is different. It's a bit like pre-evolution of thinking is like an analog brain. Everything is slow, everything's A to B, everything happens in a sequence, one after the other. Whereas the evolution of thinking is a thinking model that kind of permits you to be everywhere all the time doing everything. So you run into conflict here. The first one is people say, well, you can't do that. That's being distracted and being all over the shop. The reality is you can do a lot of things simultaneously, or what we call concurrently, not at the same time, but one after the other in a very tight sequence. And that, right, I think, is the evolution. The second element of it is the ability to think in circles, to understand that just as a human being evolves, our brain is the most malleable part of us, and a bit like going to a gym and building our muscles, we can build our brain. And if you look at it from a mindset angle, at a fixed mindset and a growth mindset, the way of working that we created, even if you are a fixed mindset person, creates a growth mindset environment. And I think that's also very important, where a lot of the research and work around fixed mindset and growth mindset is that you are someone with a growth mindset or you are someone with a fixed mindset, whereas we are equal parts growth and equal parts fixed. Fixed mindset is how we survive and remove chaos from our lives, because we do need routine. We do need some common things to happen each and every day. We want our kids to go to school and come back safely, yet we want to not have to overthink everything. So we create habits and patterns. and beliefs that allow us to kind of move through life more effortlessly. But at the same time, it's when those beliefs, programs, or the autopilot, behavioral autopilot, when that needs to change, then we have to be open to growth. So the evolution of thinking is not about what you need to do. It's how you go about thinking differently, where ultimately we're putting the dream first, the outcome, the destination, and working backwards into what we do each and every day. It's also the whole expectation management thing. You know, you read Atomic Habits or the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, or How to Get Things Done, or Mind Your Mindset, or whatever the latest book is that helps you get, what you want out of life. And some of the challenges with it, and part of the challenges of growth and personal growth is we have far too lofty ambitions about how much we can change and how quickly that change can happen, which is why I think a more appropriate word is evolution, because evolution is by nature relatively slow, but at the same time it's persistent and consistent. You're always evolving, whether you want to or not. You may as well do it in a purposeful, intentional way. So the evolution of thinking is just how do I go from just doing the same things every day, plodding along, to introducing a little bit of growth and curiosity without it being so left field or so far outside my comfort zone, I trigger fear and therefore I regress back to growth mindset. And I call them thought loops. It's a loop style of thinking where we intentionally connect feelings, thoughts, and actions through a thought loop. And what that really means is when we've done something, when we've done an action, we need to loop back to the way it feels. And by feeling, I don't mean emotion. I just mean feelings of stress, confusion, feeling of disenchantment or disengagement, just something that's not making you respond physically. I feel angry. More just like check in with what do I feel? How do I feel about this? And so those 4 steps are done intentionally through another 4 steps, which is to say, what did I set out? It's called ORCA, ORCA. What was my objective? O. What was my result? R. What was the cause of that result? C. And my action? A. So the killer whale, right? Or as I recently found out, killer dolphin. A whale is actually killer whales are from the dolphin family. Just doesn't have the same ring.
I did not know that.
Yeah. No one wants a dolphin to be branded, so the poor old whales got tagged with the black sheep of the family there. So the ORCA method. I was diagnosed with ADHD a couple of years ago, and one of the things they talk about with people with ADHD is we're not very good with understanding time. There's now and later. That's about it. And I thought that's pretty fascinating, because we have diaries and we work towards planning and having all these kind of milestones. But then I really reflected on it, and I said, you know what? I am that person. I'm either it's now or later, and my bucket of later always ends up too full, and my what I do now ends up being a little bit too much procrastination. So once I started to realize that, what I started to see was, hey, look, this fighter pilot thinking, the origins of this is our debrief methodology, was connecting the 3 states of time together. If you have tomorrow, today, and yesterday, the conversation's framed exactly like that. It's, well, what's my objective? What do I want tomorrow? What's my result? What actually happened today? What was the cause of that gap between where I want and where I need to be? And being human, usually the gaps between what we want and where we are negative ones, because we're always overestimating our capability and underestimating effort. So objective is tomorrow, result is today, and the reason was yesterday. It's in the rearview mirror. It's everything that just happened. And the goal really is to not get bogged down in the past and really just try and self-flagellate and make ourselves feel miserable and worthless for making all these mistakes. It's actually just to find one thing. It can be a small thing, it can be a big thing. It's, as long as there's one thing. If you don't know, ask someone as well. If you're not sure what the cause is, ask someone. But the next step's the most important one, and that's taking that cause and converting it into action. So it might be, it might be, for example, wanting to get healthier, right? And your objective was to go to the gym for an hour, and you haven't exercised for 2 months, and I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to go for an hour, and you wake up and you don't go, right? So the cause for that was likely in your mind, you'd framed up what 1 hour of pain looks like.
Absolutely.
Whereas if you just reframe that a little bit and said, my goal in the morning is to get up and walk into the gym, and that's it. What you're basically doing is achieving the same thing, which is going to the gym, but you've set an expectation so low that it's just walking down the stairs, getting in the car, going to the gym. I'm not even committing to exercise today. But when you get there, you start to surprise yourself because you're there now, and you're like, well, while I'm here, I'm just going to get myself to do 1 set of 10 reps. That's it. I'm just going to hop on and then you do 10 reps, and you're like, now I'm here. I'm like, why don't I just bang out 3 sets? And that might be it for the day. You might you're done. It's a new habit. It's hard, and you go home, but you've got a spring in your step because you just surpassed your own expectations in that day. If you want to achieve a goal, there's only 2 things you can do. 1, lower it, or 2, raise the effort. That's it. And because we operate at a level where we set our effort too high, all the bad habits of procrastination and the survival instincts of your brain kicks in and says, hey, look, whatever, I'm going to start to send you a whole bunch of excuses now because no human can operate at that level 6 days a week. And therefore, let's get out the phone. Let's keep me busy over there scrolling so I don't have to do this gym stuff. Start with the goal. Don't start with the work.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say, which is really fascinating to me because again, I've not heard it framed this way. It's okay to lower your goal if you're going to actually meet it. Because I think as human beings, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're going to naturally want to, once we hit that goal, want to achieve another goal.
The satisfaction of achieving a goal is fleeting. The satisfaction on the journey to achieving a goal is sustainable. You've got the winner's high, but you also have the winner's low about 24 hours later, like buyer's remorse. Like any time you have all the dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins through your body, it creates a vacuum and something has to fill it up. But what we really want to manage here from a habit forming pattern is our cortisol in our body, because an expectation unmet also releases cortisol. It's more like a chronic stress, and that's where we drink, take drugs, indulge in bad behaviors when we feel like our life, there's no hope or pathway to get to the life that we want. And we just don't have that conversation with ourselves, and we don't have it in that defined, very simple, but very measurable way. What the hell did I try to achieve today? Nothing. Right. Why did I achieve nothing? I didn't really have a plan. I didn't think about it. What am I going to do this afternoon? I'm going to plan to do 3 things: morning, midday, afternoon. Morning, I'm going to walk into the gym. I'm not going to do exercise though. I'm just going to go there. Midday, I'm going to go to the healthy salad joint instead of the Chinese for lunch. I'm not going to order a salad potentially, but I'm just going to go there. And in the afternoon, what am I going to do? I'm going to make sure I have this conversation with myself again tomorrow afternoon. That's the only 3 things I want to achieve tomorrow. So you go to the gym, you'll do a little bit of exercise. You'll go to the salad bar, you're there now. Actually, I'm going to have a nice salad. And you'll loop back in the afternoon and go, I've achieved 3 things that I didn't achieve yesterday. Now I can set some new goals. And you just incrementally away we go. What I always, what always, I guess surprised me was if my mum, reads those women's like People or People magazine and, just those gossip mags, right? And you're forever in those gossip mags looking at actors and actresses and models and all these people that look amazing, but at the same time, they let it go too, and their bellies are hanging out and they're stressed, yelling at the kids, and you just realize that it's just never all good and it's never all bad. But we have an opportunity in there to create this cycle of small wins. So our life is instead of like a jagged mountain, it's like a little sawtooth, and it's just constantly, trending upwards all the time.
I love your perspective on that. You talk about unlocking human potential, and that's what you've already started to dive into here with. And I want to mention that you've had some extreme highs yourself. You've built multi-million dollar companies, and then you've had some extreme lows where you mentioned losing it all. And I want to know, just from that perspective, how did you manage both ends of that spectrum? Like when we talk about human potential and kind of getting in these spots in our lives where, extreme high, extreme low, how do we manage that process through those periods in our lives?
Yeah, now I have a slightly different, I guess, journey with this. I didn't know at the time, but now I look backwards, which is, hyperfocus ADHD. So unless you're constantly stimulated, unless you're growing, unless you're starting a company and growing a company, once you start to hit a plateau, you get bored with it, right? You just find it boring. And equally, you don't tend to get too upset by things going wrong. And interestingly, as I learn more about this and learn more about myself and meet other fighter pilots, there's a certain ADHD quality that comes with fighter pilots, because ADHD is obviously with a task positive network and the dormant mode of the brain. They don't really work they kind of stay connected instead of focus, creative, focus. You're like focus, creative, which is kind of what flying is. You got to be really focused on certain tasks, but it's so dynamic. You've got to always be creative to come up with a solution to get out of trouble or employ a weapon at the right time. So it kind of reinforces it. And I'm lucky, having ADHD and being in that environment, because the structure and the focus that it brings to fly an airplane is a form of therapy for it. Since I left, though, it became much more wild, and I'm reining it back in. So I think that the incremental nature of success, and so much about performance and goal setting is about what you do. It's about journaling and doing your gratitude ceremonies and doing yoga and doing meditation and do this and do this and do this and do. Performance of living your life you want is what you believe. It's not what you do. It's very different. And if you believe strongly about something, you don't have to do meditation to relax and be mindful. You are, because you are so focused in what you believe. You don't need to-do lists, and you don't need to be motivated, because what you believe, you are constantly seeking. You're seeking knowledge, you're curious, you're learning, you're problem solving incrementally each and every day. So we tend to, in the personal well-being and health space, very much focus on what you do to achieve well-being rather than what you believe to achieve well-being. And because our beliefs are autopilot, because our beliefs are something that are things we experience and learn, and generally negative, when something bad happened to us to create a belief, what you find is we're unable to break that autopilot. So the feel, think, do loop is designed. If your beliefs were an oil tanker, what you want to do is the conscious mind, the bit you control, wants to be the little pilot boat out the front. So it wants to set, and that's what mindset is, right? It wants to set the direction for the tanker, and it can move quickly, and the oil tanker moves slowly behind it. So when we talk about feel, think, and do, our feelings are naturally linked to our autopilot. So we will feel what we believe, okay? And if our beliefs are compromised, we feel angry. If our beliefs are supported, we feel happy. But what I believe and you believe is two different things, which is why we struggle to keep each other happy, because we don't know we keep doing things to make people happy rather than listening to what they believe. Look at what's going on in the Ukraine and Russia. Look what's happening in Israel and Palestine and Gaza. So, So the only way you can do that is put the little pilot boat. So that's intention, right? Mindset and intention. So if I'm not feeling right, or I'm not feeling good, and if I'm looking at the world around me and it doesn't make me feel good, I've got to set my intention and go, well, so I don't feel good. My thought is I need to set my intention. whatever that is. So if you're particularly, upset around what's going on with leadership in politics, you could set an enormous intention and say, I want to be the president of the United States. I want to be the prime minister of Canada or Australia. Set the intention. If you really want to change the world, that's kind of how big your intention has to be. Sure, you can do your recycling. We all got to do our bit, and we do our little bits to change the world. But through that intention, we create our belief in we believe that's what we're going to do. And then we create what I call our belief network. So Kim's going to be the Prime Minister of Canada. Every time I see her, she talks about being the Prime Minister of Canada. Anytime someone talks to me about politics or poor leadership, and if only there was a good politician, I'd go, oh, you should reach out to this Kim. It's one politician, really great mindset. And over time, you start to build your belief network. So you no longer have to do the heavy lifting. You start to build community, and you start to build believers, and all of a sudden, it's not you on the megaphone, it's hundreds, then thousands, then tens of thousands of people who are in your belief network. It doesn't have to be something huge like being a prime minister. For me, it was being a fighter pilot. As a kid, from the age of 5, I knew I wanted to be a fighter pilot. I didn't want to be. I knew I was going to be one. I just knew it. I just believed it. And no matter what happened along the way, during my eye exam to be a fighter pilot, I was mildly short-sighted, and the ophthalmologist said, you're a bit short-sighted, so technically, I can't let you go through. And you say, but I'm meant to be a fighter pilot. This is what I'm born to do. What can you do? And they say, well, you know what? I can mark you up, but make sure you get some glasses after you join. I just failed the maths exam just ever so slightly. And in my final interview, it was said, hey, you got a 6.9, you needed a 7. So technically we can't let you through. And look, and people can see it, they can feel it, they can see your energy. And you're like, this is what I'm meant. This means everything to me. This is, where did I go wrong? What can I do? And he just went, look, what's 9 times 9? I said 81. He went, there you go, 7.0. So you got through.
I love that. I love that. That gave me some energy when you were talking about that, because your belief was guiding you. It was literally motivating you and pushing you to not just accept the answers you were getting. You were literally changing the environment around you to enhance and to support your belief. And
I didn't. And the thing was, back then, I didn't do it intentionally. I only now, in reflection, saw what happened. I just believed it. Like, it was that simple. I just believed this is, when I failed a ride on my training course, the next time I got 5 out of 5, I nailed it, because I believed that was, I believed I was going to be a good entrepreneur.
Is that what you work with people on? Is that really the foundation of your work, is to tackle the area of belief? What does somebody truly believe versus what are they, what is a template that they're following to follow a performance objective?
I actually work at it the other way. I start with what they do, because that's where they're at. People don't actually understand what believing is, or belief. It's not. It's a word that we use to explain our program, right?
Right.
But when people say, I don't believe you, we assume that believe has something to do with you being honest or integrity. I don't believe what you say. Whereas really what you're saying is, I don't understand what you believe. I don't understand what's going on in your head, right? And I think, apart from the psychopaths and the few, the few people that have got a very broken program, but most of us are well intentioned, right? What's the point in doing what you're doing right now? What does it actually achieve? Yeah. And most people can't answer that. They've
simple question.
That way. Yeah.
Simple question, but it's a profound question.
Yeah.
It's a great question.
If someone is yelling, child's having a tantrum, and I do a lot of flying, right? So consistently see people with children and people who it's not their children, they get frustrated by it. And, I think in my head, I don't ask them that. It's none of my business. I'm not one of those sort of people. I just immediately think what is the point in having that response? It's an 8-month-old baby. It's what it does. It's
exactly. Exactly.
It's what it does. Put your headphones in. Yes, it's annoying, and you can bring the feeling down to a feeling of annoyance and discomfort. As a sidebar, as a fighter pilot, when you used to be on a mission and they try to jam your radios so you couldn't hear anything, it was always a baby screaming. Ugh, it's a nightmare. I see a road rage incident. I see someone cut somebody off, and I see someone get angry. I just think, what is the point of that reaction? I mean, they didn't see you like that. They didn't deliberately cut you off. In a corporate environment, it's far more banal. It's what's the point of this process? What's the point of this checklist? What's the point of this particular initiative? What's the point of this transformation? What are you trying to achieve? What does good look like? And immediately we go from what we do to what we want. And once people start to think about what they want, then you can say, well, do you believe you can get there? Do you believe it? And now we can start to have a conversation around belief. But if you start to talk, if I said to you, hey, Kim, what are your beliefs? You'd be like, that's a big question. And it is a big question. So you've got to,
it's a huge question.
It's double-ended. You're the manifestation of your beliefs are what you do. That's why it's a good place to start. And then, what generally happens is someone will find 2 or 3 like really root cause beliefs that are getting in the way. And then they can start chipping away at it.
Yeah. That simple question that you ask, which is why are you doing this? That right there, again, such a simple question, but it gets the understanding out and on the table of what do we do that we're doing on autopilot, and what is it that we need to actually think about and address and possibly shift. But I'm convinced that so many of us in whether it's in business or personal lives or whatever, have just adopted this habit of and comfort of recycling actions and thought processes, and that's what's causing the not moving forward and not getting results. So that one simple question, I think, is so amazing to put at the top of the list, and to have, even as an organization, if you're running a business, have that at the top of the list. If that's the question you're going to look at every day that you tackle your work, I think it could be an absolute game changer.
It is, and it also gets you embarking on a journey to the profound. So let's say, for example, I do a lot of work around meetings, right? Meeting culture. And the first question everyone asks when they get in a meeting room is, what's the point of this meeting? And usually the response is, to update on how we're going on a particular project. And it's like, why do you need an update? Okay, so we know what's going on. Why isn't there stuff going on? Why do we think there's stuff not going on? And they're like, well, it's a big project. I'm like, but should we not be in a position here when we commit to getting a certain amount of work done each week that it's done, and therefore the need to update disappears? And it's like,
it's a different way of thinking. It's like, coming down a few layers.
Yeah. And it's like, so what you're saying is you don't trust each other to get the job done. We've got an issue between our say-do gap. So between our that conversation starts. So what we're saying here is we don't have clarity around the ORCA, what our objective is. We don't really know what our results are. We're here kind of updating. We're not even looking at the reasons why. We're just sort of updating each other, and we're walking away with no action. So just framing up, what's the point? What's the objective? What's the results leading here? Well, these 6 people are finished. They've got 2 people here that have got an issue internally that we can resolve to move forward, and one of them has an external one. Cool. What's the cause? What's the cause for you two, you and you? Right, now we understand why. What's the action? 1, 2, 3, 4, go. That's how you get an hour meeting down to 10 to 12 minutes.
Amazing.
And I believe that any organization can be run with 12 hours of meetings maximum. There's no need to have more than that. And that's I actually say 6 or 12. You should be able to have 6 hours of meetings, which is 12 meetings a week. or if it's a bigger team, 12 meetings for an hour. But realistically, you just need to top and tail each day. That's 5. And you don't do one on Friday. You top and tail each day. So that's 10. You don't do anything on Friday. So that's 9. So that gives you 3 on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at lunchtime to kind of tweak and adjust your execution during the week. So that's it. That's your 12 meetings.
Amazing.
Each meeting has representatives, one up, one down, and you're not allowed to do any update. You're either done the work or you haven't. And if you haven't, what do you need? What help do you need to get it done in the next week?
Again, that level of detail and breaking down is profound when you really stop and think about it as a team. So, I mean, that's a whole podcast in itself. So, we'll maybe leave that one there. But I just want to switch gears just for a second and talk a little bit again about the importance of vision for each one of us. And when I first spoke to you a few weeks back, you said something that really caught my attention. You said, I've done everything that I set out to. And I don't know if I've spoken to anybody. I had to think back, and I don't think I have heard anybody say it with that level of certainty. And I have to ask you, what vision did you have for your life to get that kind of a result? Because that's incredible.
I didn't have a vision. I just had a belief. I just did what felt right. In terms of, to me, vision's a bit more granular in terms of what does the end of this week look like? What does the end of the month look like? But if you break it down, the first one I was given was the belief to be a fighter pilot. But again, if you start to break down the way that we build a belief, when I was 5, I was at an air show. There were a lot of fighter jets flying around. It was a beautiful summer's day. I watched all these incredible machines taxiing past, and the sun was glinting off the canopy, and these kind of superhuman people in the cockpit with green suits and patches and masks down. It was all around the Star Wars era. So it was all pretty amazing. And then just the speed and the sound for a young kid was mind-blowing. And I just remember, watching these jets fly past, and one particular moment where one flew from behind, and I looked up and I could see it, but I couldn't hear it. And I was like, all day the airplane's been flying around, and I was about to ask my dad, like, where's the noise? And as I was turned around, it was like, boom, this massive shockwave of sound and wind. It was so low back in the days when they could do that. And I think the visceral, the physical and visceral experience just imprinted a program on me. Which is why I think we see, children that grow up. I was working with a family business, one of the top jewelry businesses on earth, one of the most luxurious brands, and it's intergenerational because that's the belief. That's just what their life is, and there's no angst about it. There's no, this isn't me. Sure, people spear off from at certain levels with siblings, etc. There was none of that. This is a trust fund environment. Everyone worked. Everyone was busy, and that to me was a coherent belief system, a belief around the purpose of that organization. So the fighter pilot bit was an easy one. And then when that was taken away, I needed to make money. And I thought, well, it'd be nice to make a lot of money if I'm going to make money. I have an extreme. Whatever I do, it's got to be the extreme. I want to be a pilot. I've got to be a fighter pilot. I want to be in business. I want to be an entrepreneur, make a lot of money. Not to use it, not to say I have a lot of money, but that's the point of it. But it also had to be moral. It had to be right, which is why it was in Afghanistan in post-war reconstruction. So that was that belief, and then it was built that business, hugely successful, very, very, very large revenue numbers, but just too hard for me and my business partner to keep tabs on. It's very hard to get a working capital loan, and the amount of working capital that business needed was enormous. So we had to sell out to a multinational in that one. So whilst it was all the numbers looked great, it wasn't overly lucrative for us because of the working capital challenges that we had. Then I wanted to build something. I thought, well, if you only live once, so you've got to build something that stands the test of time. And that was, ended up being a 17-story hotel using a technique for construction that had never been used before, volumetric prefabricated modular construction, or put
Oh, wow.
simply, Lego, big Lego blocks. And did that. And then the kids came and they stayed on the top floor. In fact, it was with watching grand designs with the kids where they were talking about, where a father was walking around with his kids in this amazing home that he built in England. And I thought there, it would be nice if I built something for my kids to, look at. So I built a hotel, and then got into personal development and performance with Afterburner after I watched a mate of mine deliver a keynote talking about, here's how fighter pilots think and do things. It was all codified and structured. And I was like, oh man, that explains everything. That's how I managed to get all the stuff done in business after I left. I got into a publishing business, bought an aviation publishing brand because I loved aviation. It was the biggest one in the Southern Hemisphere. So that was a bit of fun. But I learned there that for someone with ADHD, digital publishing is not the right place to be. I just got sucked into a vacuum of social media there and burned myself out. So I sold that business, but kept doing the personal development. And then when the opportunity came to acquire Afterburner, the business, globally, I took it with both hands because I fundamentally believe, I believe what Boo believes, that's a certain way of doing things. But I also believe if I've had a 44-year journey of growth, right? But not doing it I do it intentionally now, but by accident when I started. So I understand the power of belief and intention implicitly. But it's a journey. So sometimes it's hard to go there straight away. So where Afterburner is great is it comes in. You don't have to read a book about mindset. You don't have to know anything about it. You don't even have to be interested. But if you follow the what we call our flawless execution methodology, which is a thought loop, you will by default become a high growth person. So that's pretty cool. Like to be able, no one else does that. No other consulting business. Because no one has that DNA in them. The same DNA as a fighter pilot, which is the importance of debriefing, the importance of doing it in a radically transparent and accountable way. And this platform, because again, what better way to help people believe this is a good idea than to do it wearing a flying suit on stage or in a conference room or in an office with a bunch of real life fighter pilots.
Totally. It gives you that sense of being there.
I believed it. Yeah. And the problem with a lot of performance models and well-being models is people don't believe them. There's a lot of snake oil salesmen. There's a lot of credible people. Don't get me wrong. There's some really great people out there, but you still have to kind of be quite cerebral to grasp some of the high growth mindset kind of well-being concepts.
Yeah.
But this is just like and I was any man when I learned it. I was not thinking about, I didn't even have a concept of ego or self until I was in my mid-30s. So I just did it. I just followed this bouncing ball and it equaled a great life.
Just hearing you talk, I can't help but think, and this is probably why you're making statements like I've done all that I've wanted to do thus far, is this whole process and Afterburner, the way that you're describing how you're rolling this out, just seems so unique to you. It seems like this is you in a business form. You're living out what you believe. You're sharing that, and it just comes out of you so effortlessly. And that's really what it's all about. That's the goal I think each of us need to have, is to find that thing, like all those experiences, all that, everything that you've learned and chosen in your life thus far has brought you to this place. And that's why you are delivering such a unique program and mindset shift and training. And there's just a reason for that. It's because it's what you are designed to do, just you.
Yeah. And I want to be careful. I'm not coming across saying I've done everything that the world has to offer.
That's not what I meant. Yeah.
I've done everything I wanted to do for myself, which is a very specific set of criteria to the life I designed for myself, I am living, and that's why I have my own podcast, The Few, because if you look at the entire planet, there's not many people that live their life by design, but there certainly is still a lot. There's still millions of them, and they
Yes.
all kind of have these same recurring themes, thematics in their life, and to me, all the different ways of framing up vision, purpose, to me is belief. All of those
Absolutely.
bundle up into, there's no point having a vision if you don't believe it. And
100%, or you'll never walk it out. You will never, when the times get tough, you are not going to sustain in those times if it's not something that is truly ingrained in you as a belief.
Exactly right. Exactly
Yeah.
right.
So as we're kind of getting near the end here, I have to ask you just a quick question about legacy, because you're now in a place in your life. You brought that word up to me before. What does that mean to you to be doing things now with your family in mind? You have 2 sons, correct?
2 sons, a daughter. Yeah.
And a
Legacy
daughter,
is a
yes.
funny word. The way that I see a lot of people frame up legacy, it's still all about you. Like, it's, even though you're saying, I want to leave a legacy for my children, it's I want to leave a legacy for my children. My children aren't asking for it. No one else is asking for it. I had no legacy. I don't feel any better off or worse for it. So legacy is interesting, right? But do we want to leave the place better than we left it? Yes, absolutely. One of the challenges with beliefs is, if you build a belief system where your kids believe that they're going to be looked after their whole lives, they're not going to go out there and learn to look after themselves. So one of the challenges with legacy, and I think we're seeing this in Western society, is we're creating environments where there's no desire to learn. There's no overly no appetite for challenge, because you kind of have everything. Everything is there for you. There's always a safety net. And I think when our parents grew up, and when I grew up, it certainly wasn't the case. If you were on the dole or in the welfare system, that was a bad thing, and you had to get up and work your ass off. Whereas now it's a safety net, and let's talk about some of the issues around that, and what we need to, what can we do for you? And we're inviting a lot more complexity into simple things. Like, sometimes you just got to work hard, and just sometimes the work doesn't deliver a result today. And that's why you've got to reframe it with that ORCA conversation every day. Reframe it. If you don't, you just have every day like that. So I think we've got to be careful about legacy. But I think if your legacy is selfless and it equips others for a journey of curiosity, that can only be a good thing. If we can break some of the fixed mindsets that lead to conflict, that lead to pain, that lead to overpopulation of the world, the belief system that my kids will support me. All of these belief systems, if we apply some growth and curiosity, I believe the world will be in a more sustainable, better place.
That kind of valuable legacy can be built into the generations after by building in that curiosity, by building in an encouragement to have a firm belief in some things, and unpacking that mindset to be able to, that's an amazing legacy to leave our kids moving forward. Thank you so much. I'm so honored to have been able to talk to you, Boo. We will have all of this available, and some resources and links to your podcast that you mentioned, and also to your website, and just to be able to give people an opportunity to connect with you. And you've just been so inspirational, and I really appreciate your perspective. So if you want to learn more about Boo, you can go to afterburner.com. And like I said, everything else will be in our show notes. So Boo, thank you again so much for being here.
Thanks, Kim. And if you really want to listen to people other than me sharing their stories about how they lived a life by design or achieved the dreams they want, Few Podcast is my podcast, The Few with Boo. And it'd be great to have you over there and have a listen. And there's so much to learn from these remarkable people.
Absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that. And again, we'll make sure all the links are available and easy to find for you to find this amazing podcast as well. So thank you again. And
Thanks, Kim.
also to our listeners for tuning in. See you next time.
Take care. Bye bye.